Hello and welcome to the Talking Crit live stream. With me is my usual cohort, co-host, accomplice, Bad Mike. Yeah,
Hello. Just
and with us is Courtney Campbell, Hack&Slash, uh, blogger, venture writer, creator of many a very useful tool for the DM's toolbox.
I've got one right here on the desk. I'll probably pull it out as soon as I finish.
Pulling it out.
I was just using it in my game the other day. Well, hell, it's buried. All right. Well, you get the point. You get the point. We have this stuff. I mean, this is useful.
Yes.
Stuff Courtney creates is useful, and it gets used. I'm going to find it. Damn it! It's sitting right
That's
here.
Right. That's my metric.
Aha! There it is, right there. I knew it.
I'm particularly proud of that. I like it.
Love this. Yes.
Oh, it's a beautiful book. Damn.
I just write the kind of things I wished were for sale.
Well,
like when you remember when you were a kid and you were browsing it, and you see something like the Lone Wolf Fighting Fantasy, and you're like, yes, I'm glad somebody wrote that. I'm taking that home. I try and make the books that people wish were written. So,
well, you do a very good job doing that, man. And
I mean, I hope so. I go hungry if I don't do it well.
Well, all right, that's a valid point.
Like I'm highly motivated.
And motivation is a great thing, but and before we do the deep delve and talk about your Kickstarter, and then we talk about as we were saying, gossip in the industry, the shite. Courtney, as a blogger myself, blogging is what got me into podcasting in the long run, but whatever.
Yeah.
You've had your blog now for how many years?
Oh my goodness. So the Genesis was 2008.
Jeez.
That makes it old.
Yeah.
I was late to the scene. I felt like a latecomer because Grognardia had already been for 2 years, and I thought the unreachable heights of 600 followers seemed a lofty mount to climb. But a lot of stuff has changed in the last 13 years.
My God. Actually 13
like
years
I made
ago,
a whole person in that interim.
Well,
like, there's a
there
whole
you go.
living creature that comes over and just raises hell for days at a time.
13 years ago, I think I was just beginning to dabble as a player with the Fantasy Grounds VTT. I was getting my toes wet coming back to gaming, so I wasn't even blogging at that point. I don't think I met Rach in 2008.
I mean, right? Like it's forever ago. I remember, like I remember talking with Bill about publishing Alchemy, like during my ex-wife's pregnancy. It is a long time coming. These things that are happening now, they take the gears. They do not turn quickly.
That was the year of the first North Texas, 2008.
Yeah,
so
I can't even right. And look how big that is now. That's
it's our 13th year. So yes,
foundational,
yes, gentlemen. That's been that's been a while. Yeah, you guys have been blogging for a long time.
Yeah.
No, he's been blogging for a long time. I've been blogging for not as long a long time. I mean,
you still got some years there, dude.
Don't let the gray hairs fool you.
No, I mean, your blog. You've got some years in your blog because that's how I first knew you was your blog. That's how I remember the Tenkar's Tavern blog. And I remember.
Well, I actually remember you giving me a shout out on. I guess actually I shouldn't say it. I'm looking at my 2008. I had the idea of putting up the blog because I made a post, and then next year, 2009, it actually kicked off. So I'm right behind Courtney, but
there was an upsurgence. That was the start of the blog era before G+.
Yeah. And it was huge. And I'll tell you the truth.
Good company. There were a lot of people.
I think that G+, while it helped blogs initially, I think it killed a lot of the OSR blogs in the long run. When G+ went under, because so many of them were like, oh, I'm going to use Google Plus for my commenting. The worst thing you could have done. I did it for half a day.
You can't trust Google. I was sort of. I mean, like everything is like waves, right? Like it comes and goes. Like there are periods of high activity and periods of low activity, and the specifics of location and activity have more to do with the time that one is in rather than any sort of objective. But I see that. Like anybody who integrated their stuff with Google really got screwed on the G Plus thing for sure. Yeah, and that absolutely was devastating. Like it just made it a bigger mess than they wanted to clean up. There's a lot of that in the industry where somebody changes something, like I don't know, hypothetically gets rid of saddle stitch printing, and their solution is that's unfortunate. All those people with all those saddle stitch books now not having anything for sale. It's a rough road for some of us.
Oh yeah, and that was huge. Now, I mean, my suspicion is that because that's all Lightning Source. Technically, it isn't drive-through, but I suspect that Lightning Source, the machine, their printer for saddle stitch
is running. Its
time is done, and it's like we can. I don't think we can rebuild it. We'd have to buy a new one.
They don't want to pay for a new one. I hear it.
It's not worth it.
Yes.
So like, fuck them. We're the only game in town. They're screwed, and that's really what it is. And that, we talk about, monopolies. I mean, we talk about like Amazon is like the new monopoly out there, as is Google. But for our industry, drive-through RPG is the monopoly when it comes to distributing. And if they don't cover if they don't carry your stuff, you're fucked.
Sure. Yeah, I certainly don't want to get a direct message from somebody who works at the company complaining about things I might have said in public. That would be terrifying.
You don't have to say anything, Courtney. We're just talking in hypotheticals here.
Yeah, it's completely a hypothetical discussion. Somebody hypothetically got rid of that. Drive-through is not like, I don't know, N-World, which banned Joe the lawyer for a blog post he made. I mean, that's just politics, right? Like there's so many egos running around in this space, and you just bump up against them, and you're like, you sail your own boat, man. I'm glad that you have that much room in there.
Well, Courtney, since we seem to be just yammering, why don't you talk to us about this? Get your Kickstarter info out of the way here and tell us.
Okay, first of all, I like to eat and live indoors, so back my Kickstarter directly. Like all this other stuff. Like I'm making a very, very cool thing, but by all means, keep in mind this is not going like 5% goes to Kickstarter, and the rest of it is literal cash in hand from artists and writers. So let's make it happen. I own a lot of monster books. And I mean that in the sense that everybody means it, in that they have too many. Like you need the stats for all the systems, for your monsters, which is fine, but they're not useful beyond that mechanical. We're exploring fantastic environments, right? And so I wanted, and I use a way to create biomes and ecosystems in my game that are filled with unique creatures. Because I have this database of ideas that I collected on G+, like the genesis of the project were crowdsourced ecology posts, and everybody who contributed that gets a copy for free. And I've actually gotten permission and worked out stuff a long time ago, and things have changed, but I made it public that if anybody has any questions or issues, we can work something out. The campaign's structured for that. Some people wanted compensation for their stuff, and I made note of that. And we're going to get that to those people. But I wanted something that the players could interface with, that they could find out about the weird, fascinating creatures of their world on their own, like through play. And so, that's in there. I wrote about that, and then I wrote these huge descriptions of the monsters, except they're not descriptions. They're just a bunch of counterfactual rumors that all compete with each other. And you can pick what's true for your campaign, and then the players can find out about it just by walking into the biome outside the city. They're there, stuff starts happening. They're presented with, like signs of monster activity and conflicts between types of monsters, and they get their information from the setting, and that brings in player skill, Are they going to be prepared for werewolves? Do they pick up the signs? You know, talks about structuring it, misdirection, how to handle it as a DM when you're launching a campaign. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just.
Oh, no. I was going to say the name of it is Bestial Ecosystems. I didn't know if you said the name or not.
Yeah, Bestial Ecosystem created by Monstrous Inhabitation. Yeah.
I like the examples you give there because rather than just be this is monster book. It's just here's your stats. This is your monster.
There are no stats.
Yeah, no stats at all, and it gives you some really cool little. Like I'm looking at. So the example it gives is wyvern. It tells you what wyverns are called, description of what the wyvern is, but it says things that are known. They can fly. They have a tail has a poison sting, and they're related to dragons. Then there's a whole bunch of more descriptions that are all rumors and other whispers, some which may be true, some which might not be true. Pretty much it sounds to me almost like a laundry list for the DM, just to or recipe list.
Well, it's not only that; it's special tactics they might use, unique attacks you might add, variants of the creature, like what kind of valuable objects they might possess that you could loot. Like it's really it's an idea. Like each monster is between 6 and 10 pages filled with all that information, those ideas. Every page is illustrated. It's copiously illustrated. We got James Shields, J. Shields working with us, Bodie, and there's some other artists on board, DireQuest, some other people who have experience specifically with like monster and animal anatomy. So like it's going to be like I don't know if you see that drop cap there. Mm-hmm. Like that drop cap is an original drop cap that I created, and so each one's going to be unique for each monster. It's very much like an art and fantasy setting book that you can sit down and just like have so many options for the campaigns we're all going to be running once we all get our shots and can meet in public again.
Woohoo!
It's got another great cover by Skull Fungus. I want to note it's the third in the trilogy of On Downtime and Domain, which you showed earlier, and then Artifices, Deceptions, and Dilemmas, which is for sale now. It's in print at Amazon, but it should be in print at Drive Thru RPG whenever the proofs show up. So a few days.
Well, John Miller is in the audience, and he says it looks great. Lots of value at the table.
Yeah, I'm making the tools I need to run a campaign, and having a database of creative monster ideas. Like this is not pedantic stuff that you can come up with on your own. You know, like these are some interesting alternate takes on ways you can design these ecologies.
Well, that's good because it's inspiration for the DM, and that's actually the secret, or it's not a secret. I mean, if anybody who's followed your stuff should know it. By the way, I'm dealing with a cat that's looking for attention, and then she's like, "You're not giving me enough attention." Hiss.
No respect. I receive a long letter from my brother's dog every time I come over, listing the number of times it didn't get paid attention to during the week while I was gone. She wants to let me. She has a newsletter about it, and she's very vocal. So I understand the pet struggle. They have needs need to be met.
But your stuff, the stuff that you write and publish, is literally inspirational DM resources. This is stuff that a DM who, if they're looking to make an adventure, or if they're looking to improv a session, is stuff that will just spark your brain off, and you can run with it. And I'm an improv DM in most of my gaming when I'm running stuff, and your stuff is what I reach for.
Do I have am I painting myself into a niche, the DM's DM?
It's a good niche to be in.
It's okay. I like it. Like when you think about artists and the careers they end up in, like this is definitely a preferred one for me. It's not the wealthiest career for sure. Like we struggle to make ends meet, but I can't think of anything I'd rather do. I feel lucky. I don't understand why my Kickstarter's fun. Like, I don't know. I'm glad they do, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. But like, I couldn't identify it for anybody who's asking. I wrote a blog for 10 years before anything happened, and eventually, I guess if you just stand there and talk long enough, people assume you know what you're doing.
Oh, I'm an example of that shit. Come on.
Well, I think we're talking about I'm a big fan. I understand the 2E monsters kind of penny. I thought it was a good move. But each of these is pretty substantial. Like we're adding a few creatures as stretch goals, and 4 or 5 are going to take 20 pages.
Wow!
So you should know that these are really useful tools. It's not a surface thing. Like you're really deciding the fantasy ecology of an entire other world. And so there are lots of options and tools there to do that. And I think it's really exciting stuff. It's not what you see. Like, I don't see a lot of this stuff being Kickstarted. Like, what does the owl bear do in its den? Like, maybe it's playing cards back there. You don't know. Like, let's find out. Come up with something interesting, right? What's its blood made out of? I don't know. But like when you're exploring a fantasy world, those sort of expectations subverted make it seem more fantastic. And for sure, having a book of those makes it easier to do, because I'm not an improv person. I need tools. I need oracles to tell me what's happening.
Even the improv DMs need tools. That's what allows us to be improv DMs, the tools that we hit the table with.
Yes.
I definitely don't know the outcomes of my games when they begin.
Well, that's the way it should be, because
I think so.
if you know the outcome of the game as a DM, then there's no entertainment value for you.
Yeah, I'm not going to carry any water against anyone that feels differently. Like, they can play however they want. But for me, I definitely prefer not having any idea where things are going to end up at the end of the session and letting the players try them. And this is a tool that lets you do that, because then you do all your creative stuff, and then when they go out, they start encountering things that lead them into that ecosystem, and we spent about 40 pages covering that, talking about ways to make creative environments, like a broad structure for environments, but specifically ways to create creative encounter biomes, and ones that are geared towards use and play, right? Like, you don't want an area you're only going to spend like 12 or 15 hours in during the course of a game to have more than 3 or 4 significant encounters, because to them it will just seem random, right?
Right.
Whereas you need to limit it based on the amount of time they need to spend there. Like, we talk about all of that. This is really it's a functional tool that can be put to use immediately. It's also fun to sit around and read. So I think I have a niche.
I think nowadays I spend more time reading things and actually using them, sadly, in play, and that's why I put a premium on well-written material, because I'm probably, look, I'm playing right now in Greg Gillespie's Highfell. We'll probably be doing that for another year. I'll probably not be using a lot of other stuff, but I can always read it. And you get great ideas just from reading stuff. Now, It just so happens
he's an excellent designer. You guys talked to him last week, didn't you?
Yeah, he's hilarious. Yeah, we remember. And speaking of his Kickstarter is doing pretty good right now. He's up to 40,000 American, which for him I think is his largest selling.
Yeah, well, it's because he's putting together quality work and he's doing it repeatedly. Dandelion asked, "Can I do a reading of one of the entries?" But I suggest Dandelion just go back the Kickstarter for $1, because it's all written. Like, the book is written. You can download the PDF and read it for yourself. All the entries, everything, all the core text is there. Right now we're working on funding the artists for the cover and the interior illustrations and getting some bonus content in there.
Yeah, that's what I think is really cool, is that you're not backing something that's not going to happen here. This is already happened.
Miller,
it's already happened.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to take over. I'm a very assertive person, so tell me to shut up. Your community, shut up. But Miller says, Courtney stuff is more useful than RPG products. It may seem less flashy. Well, let me just tell you, I grew up on Russ Nicholson, right? I grew up on Tampier. Like, I don't like full cover digital paintings. I think that, like, as an artist, as somebody who produces art professionally and went to art school, but also just as a consumer, like, the number, I kind of sniped at it a little in my blog post today. So I'm not looking to make a book that has a blurry fantasy landscape or 3 people standing next to each other on the cover. Like, yeah, you could get that. You could go out and you could buy that on Drive-Thru RPG right now 100 different ways. I'm looking to create something that feels like a hidden treasure you found out in the woods. Like, that's really my aesthetic of what I'm trying to do, like a little jewel book or whatever. And I'm just a guy, I think that if you want to appeal broadly, you have to do that, because my alchemy book looks beautiful with the full color paintings and the interiors that Frog God did.
Yeah, which I still haven't seen yet, even though I work for Frog. Actually,
Well, it just showed up like 2 days ago. I just got the photographs yesterday, right?
I've got to have. I think I have the download in here somewhere. I just haven't opened it yet. But no, I don't have a physical copy, so we'll see.
Yeah, Dandelion, you can read the whole thing. You could back the Kickstarter for $1, download the demo PDF, and then unback. You don't owe me anything. You can download it for free. Check out the whole thing. Like, read the whole book. Of course, my editor hasn't gone through it. I pay for a good editor, Sandor. I wouldn't be anywhere nearly as good. Like, he keeps me from sounding like an idiot. So ignore the parts that I wrote poorly, because he'll fix them, and just read it for yourself.
I put a link in the chat, so it should show up on YouTube. It won't show up on Facebook, but YouTube and Twitter, it should be in the chat.
Now that we live in the future, I just kind of assume I'm being broadcast everywhere in the world constantly anyway.
Well, the way this interface works is apparently Facebook likes, like, I don't know, 1 million permissions before it allows. You can watch the video, but, and you can comment on it, but we won't see it on this end from Facebook.
Permission almost soon. It should just work willfully at all. Like, I may ask you, and then it completely ignores it. I understand that.
I think Courtney, I think you just did what we tend to call a Glenn Hallstrom. You became a Cylon there for a second.
He roboted. Yeah.
Did I? Oh,
you're okay now. Yeah, you're fine now.
Okay. You're fine now.
You robotically roboted.
You know, the overlords didn't like you giving away their secrets.
No, it was exactly that. It was Facebook trying to silence me.
Well, please back. I just backed because I just looked at my password while we were. I multitasked while we were talking, and I went ahead and backed it because I just remembered I forgot to back your last one. I had some stuff going on at the time, so I still got to pick that one up too. But I get a lot of use out of this. It's extremely useful, and so your stuff's extremely useful. So
I'm going to keep answering questions in the chat if that's okay.
Yeah,
that's
no,
fine.
I'm gonna be putting them up here. Let's see.
Yeah, John Miller says he asks if it helps you design encounters, and I want to say absolutely not. It's definitely ecosystems. It's like it helps you design an area that the players can explore. Like, it helps you prep it, and then you just run it, and you can wing the rest of it, because that's what's important to me. I want to understand the situation so I can pay attention directly to the players. So it's not about running a specific encounter. You're going to run that however you run it. It's about how to create an environment that presents hooks for the unique sort of ecosystem interactions. They'll associate the Mystic Plains with the 3 creatures that you put on the Mystic Plains to represent sort of that biosphere. And as they go across it, instead of running into, 1 through 4 or blink dogs, they might run into, a rock burrow filled with, whatever blink dogs have or whatever special trait they have from their section in the book. And you encounter those hooks as you go along. The players can't see behind the screen. So they don't know whether it's like a cat lair or a dog lair. They're howling. They don't know whether that's wolves or werewolves or wolverines. They have no idea. And so they use the context clues to kind of anticipate what sort of enemies or monsters there might be out there. And because you set up the biome ahead of time, the ecosystem ahead of time, and you have all these traits about your creatures, you can really give a few minutes of time to think about how they interact. And those are the things that the players run across during play. And so you just sort of have a machine that handles creating emergent gameplay when they're out wandering around in the wilderness.
Oh, that works. Look at that. You're picking up backers as we speak, man.
I hope so.
Yes.
Again, I want to be clear. We pay rent and buy food with this money. It's not going to some evil conglomerate. So I appreciate your support.
We're the Eric and I are the kingmakers. We made Greg Gillespie last week. His Kickstarter was on the way down to just nothingness.
Nobody was nothing.
Nobody was going to notice it. No.
It was in Canadian funds anyway. So
nobody cared. And then boom, we came along and boom. There we go.
And he was like, "Oh, this is Greg Gillespie. I just thought he was a college professor."
Yeah, no, we helped make him. We're fine. We like being kingmakers. That's good.
This is the end of this trilogy. If you'd like it, there's a backer level where you get all 3 books if you haven't been exposed to it before. And the bonus material in this Kickstarter, it's only available via Kickstarter. The aftermarket book won't have it. So now's the time. We're going to do this, and then we're going to work on new projects in the future, But this is an exciting conclusion to these 3 great. I secretly wrote a player's handbook On Downtime and Domains, a Dungeon Master's Guide in Artifices, Deceptions, and Dilemmas, and a monster manual in Bestial Ecosystems. And the abbreviations, I'm too clever. You should go give me money for it.
Uh-huh. Now, you see, I didn't even look into that cleverness of the titles.
So,
Back me. Oh my God! Somebody hit me in the head.
I was impressed. I was pleased with myself. Right?
It's like, what are you talking about?
D&D, AD&D, and
ecosystems created by monsters and habitation.
What is going on? I thought about it.
There you go. That actually is one hell of an Easter egg.
Sneaky.
You sneaky little.
Well, if you're going to do something, I saw my shot. So
no, that's. And I'll make. Did anybody catch that in the earlier titles?
Yes, absolutely. People on the internet are terrifying.
Oh, okay.
Immediate and very, very assertive. But yeah, I don't think it was intentional with the first one. The initials for On Downtime were OD&D, right? And then of course, when you follow up original, you follow advanced AD&D. So I did that.
Well, we will continue to pimp your work all during the show tonight, Courtney, and feel free to answer questions as they pop up. Right now we're going to go into something that Eric just sprung on me about 5 minutes before the show. Well, actually more than that, which I thought was pretty big news, and that's the announcement about Gen Con this year. Do you want to talk about that, Eric, and we can?
Well, I only found out about it because I was in the ShireCon 2021 Facebook group, and somebody mentioned, well, actually it was Tom. Love it when a major convention reschedules to the weekend of your little con. Fantastic. And I'm like,
I didn't realize that. Oh, this is
personal.
This is ShireCon's weekend. Okay, well, yeah, that's a pisser. Yeah, that's a pisser.
Yeah, but now, especially if you're in the Northeast, if you're if Connecticut is drivable for you, and you're an old school gamer, really, Gen Con or a day and a half of old school gaming, I'd go for the old school gaming.
Well, you might not be able to get into Gen Con because the announcement was that Peter Atkinson announces that Gen Con has rescheduled the dates and they have a new format. The dates for now, they went from the usual typical day or weekend in August to September 16th through 19th, which is odd. But I mean, I guess they figure the extra month will help them with more vaccinations. I don't know the logic behind that, but they're also going to change the format, and he wants to do a very limited audience in person, and then online gaming, and then what they call pop-up cons, which I don't know.
The pop-up con sounds really weird, but
the less said about that, I don't think that's. Look, I'm not going to Gen Con for a pop-up con.
Is it like a badge for a game you play on Zoom?
No. This is how they explain it. Gen Con Indy will be capped attendance with enhanced and safety measures, smaller attendance numbers to comply with public health mandates, and enable safer attendance procedures. But we don't have a number what they're capping at.
Right. It'll be 15, right? They're going to let 15 people go to Gen Con.
They're each going to have to pay $20,000 for their ticket. That way they can make up the money. Because you got to charge more, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I bet you could find 15 people willing to spend $20K for for an
Courtney,
exclusive.
I think you could. I really do. I think you could.
You gotta sell it.
Just be able to say, yeah, we went to Gen Con 2021. We're only 20 of us. But no, so yeah, that they're. And Peter does. I mean, I saw this post. I was like, what? But I read Peter's explanation, and I think I want to say we give him a hard time, but I think his heart's in the right place here. I don't know if there's a big, because look, Eric and I have talked quite a bit about what conventions are going to look like post COVID, and when it's going to be acceptable to basically go and be with a large crowd. Right now, the CDC, the recommendations are non-essential travel with large crowds is a no-no. And so I think with this in mind, Peter's trying to kind of thread the needle here and say, okay, well, we're going to have people there, but not as many. But does that mean 20,000, 30,
no,
40? I mean,
that's exactly it. Thread the needle is the right phrase for it. I think it's anybody who wants to thread a needle, that's a risky play. Like you take your risks, you take your chances, you take your licks. You'll see.
Well, you know what? Here, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and say I think the reason why we're not seeing what the smaller attendance numbers are is because they don't know what the cap is going to be. And
sure.
I think
you could be right.
Be 15.
Yeah. I mean, I think what they're going to do is, as new data comes out, and as Indy starts changing their caps on stuff. Oh, what we were capped at 1,000 per venue before. Now that number is 5,000. All right. We'll up it, but you don't publicize it. Because then you'll. Oh, it's only 1,000. Either everybody tries to break the system, or nobody gets in at all. So you don't even give that number out. And I'm going to suspect that there's going to be a large number of walk-ups at Gen Con trying to get tickets.
Sure.
But they're saying it's going to be smaller attendance numbers to comply with public health mandates and enable safer attendance procedures and potential combinations of social distancing, mask wearing, and vaccination requirements as determined by public health guidelines. So we need your papers. Give us your papers. Let me see that little card that you got from the CDC when you got your second shot. That signed off. That really, I don't know, Mike. You said you got your shot today. You got that?
Yes,
CDC
I did.
Card?
I got my shot today. Here, I'm going to prove it. Hold on. Do I have a Band-Aid still in there? I think my Band-Aid fell off.
You lost it an hour ago.
Wait. It's way up here.
Oh, there it is.
Way up there. Yeah. No, I got my first shot today. I have not become superhuman yet, but I'm anticipating the fact that I will get superpose soon.
I'm looking forward to Plague Immunity. Like yes,
that's a good
want
power
that
to have. Yes. No. So they gave you a little piece of paper, but I could make one of those on a copier. Give me an hour and a half and enough determination. I could make you 15 of them. I don't. If that's all they're asking for, I don't know. I mean, I know they're trying to play it safe, and then probably the best. And also, if you want to limit attendance, that's a good way to do it. Just say, hey, unless you're vaccinated, you can't come. I mean, I think there's a big doubt whether children will be vaccinated by then, even with the enhanced protocols.
Yeah,
because they're way down the bottom of the list, 18 and under. Yep. So and then plus it's just people that won't be able to get there in time, or just have issues where they won't be vaccinated. Can
we call it?
I can just compare it to North Texas, which is no comparison because we're expecting like 200, and they're they usually have attendance of 60,000. But
no, North Texas is growing too, right? Isn't it packed to the gills every year now?
Well, but the thing is, so for North Texas, we cap attendance at 500, which is all we want to handle. We don't want more than that because that's all the kind of convention we want to put on. We just want to put on a 500 person convention. Yes, we could have more. We just don't.
I mean, there's like 1,500 people that want to go to that, right?
Right,
like,
but I think thank you for stroking my ego, Courtney. But I don't think there's 1,500 people. But yeah, so I mean, we rarely.
I promise you, they're out there. Like you can get them to show up. You just got to reach them.
Well, we just that's the kind of convention we want to put on, and Gen Con obviously wants to put on a much different convention, which is understandable. I mean, talking to Alex Kamer, I mean, Gamehole Con, they have about 5,000. They want to grow slowly. Gen Con, they're pretty much capped out at 3,000. They've already said they're going to knock the numbers down on that. And I think Alex is perfectly happy this year with having less people because I think he knows the situation also. So I don't think it's a big surprise that Gen Con wants a lot less. But I know that if you're planning a certain kind of convention, does it seem like a lot of this is seat of the pants, Eric? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, how do you plan a convention for X number when you don't really know what X number is? I mean, I don't get it.
I've been feeling that about TSR and WotC my entire life. I'm watching things they do. I'm like, nobody is thinking about anything. That's seat of their pants thinking right there. My whole life is the same story.
I don't want to give. I mean, like I said, we give Peter a hard time on this show quite a bit, but
we should. This is a long way from workplace orgies. Like this is,
he said it. I did, but he's true. He's right. He's true.
I've been accused.
We actually said it last week.
I king shamed Ken Whitman years ago, and I got.
It's not a king shame. It's in Wired.
Yeah,
it's public knowledge.
No, we king shamed Peter about that last week. So yes, that's
we didn't touch on it that much.
Well, I mean, it's well known. It's not. It's like it's a secret that I think to him is.
Hasbro doesn't put it on the stationery.
No,
for sure.
But there's swing. They have a swinging lifestyle. That's more power to them. But
it is more power.
And so you got me off. Now I got me off track because Courtney dropped that bomb, and I can't remember what I was going to say.
I thought it was common knowledge.
It is pretty common because we did talk about it a little bit last week. I was going to say is we give him a hard time, but what is he supposed to do? I mean, he's got this gigantic show, and the monster needs food, right? I mean, the monster's got to. I mean, the monster has got to be fed, and we're talking by the monster. I mean, it's a business. It is an absolute business.
I know exactly what you mean, and that's what it is. It's a giant hungry monster, but it's ridiculous. Like I was telling Eric about this the other day. I think we're 20 years out from artificial superintelligence, and AT&T is losing its goddamn shit over me paying my phone bill 3 days late. Like the $80, man, you're gonna get it. Don't get so wrapped up over it, right? But like they need to be fed, and like for what? At this point, the rich people are just keeping score. You can't even count. If you were born in 4000 BC and earned $10,000 a day, from then until modern day, you still wouldn't be as rich as Bobby Kotick, who runs EA. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, the values of money aren't even human anymore. Who cares? But they need to be fed. There's so much money that goes into it. As somebody who watches their revenue get cut into smaller and smaller slices as it gets closer to me, I'm a little concerned about the hunger of the monster for sure.
Well, this monster, I mean, getting fed, it's a business, and every business has subsidiary businesses that feed off that main business.
Yeah.
But you're not just talking Gen Con at this point. You're talking all the businesses that run because of Gen Con. You're talking about the vendors that sell at Gen Con. You're talking about the city of Indianapolis. This is the biggest event.
Make their yearly salary by selling at their table in Gen Con. Their Senate D20 dice bombs. Like all that stuff, it's making a difference in people's lives for sure.
Oh yeah, and for the state of Indiana, and the city of Indianapolis, this makes more than a football game. I mean, this is the biggest moneymaker in the state every year. Is this event? And so yes, they're trying to figure out how can we do something. It doesn't have to be the full convention. We've got to do something. We can't miss this thing two years in a row. That's like missing it's like missing a gigantic paycheck 2 years in a row. They realize and things lose. Look, if you don't keep your name on the front above the centerfold, people start forgetting about you. I'm not saying everybody's going to forget who Gen Con is, but if you don't have your convention 2 years in a row, it gets a little dicey at that point. I think that's one of the reasons, that Luke and them have made such an effort to make sure that Gary Con happens in some way, shape, or form this year, because this will be the second year in a row there will be no in-person Gary Con, and after a while, people get used to not doing things. I mean, it's like working out. When you work out every day,
plans on that weekend instead of saving that area of the year for Gary Con, they're like, well, we went to go visit Martha. Let's go over there this year instead. Like they forget, they won't go.
When you work out, and I used to work out all the time, and I'm a big fat lard now, because what happens? You get out of the habit. If you get out of the habit of working out, you get out of the habit of working out, and you don't think about working out anymore. The same thing with these cons. Once you get out of the habit of going to places like Gary Con, as Courtney said, you go. We did something else that weekend. We had a great time. We went on spring break to blah blah blah. And it was great. We probably skipped Gary Con again next year.
It's just like like blogging or streaming. It's like you get convenient for people. You're there when they're doing a thing and they turn you on, and if you disappear,
Sure.
then you're gone. They're going to find something else at that time.
So Gen Con does not want to enter the area of irrelevancy. They want to make sure that they are still the biggest event in gaming every year, and the way to do that is to make sure something happens this year, whether it be. But I think they've realized this is, and once again, Eric and I have talked about this quite a bit. Right. They realize that people are getting a little, I wouldn't say sick of online conventions, but it's not the event it was.
Not gaming in person.
No. And it's just not holding people's interest. And I think you can see anecdotally by talking to people who run conventions, and also just by, Eric and I talk to people all the time. And I think the excitement that was there when COVID hit, like, hey, we're still going to game. It's going to be great. We're going to do stuff online. I just don't think it's there anymore.
No, it ran into the limitations of the media. Like you can game over line, but it's a different thing. You usually have like a whiteboard that you're focused on, and people are turning their cameras off.
Well, Eric, we also talk about the fact that one of the reasons Eric and I go to conventions is because we like to talk to people. We like to meet people we haven't seen all year. We like to gossip. We like to hang out. We don't necessarily like to play in games. And so an online convention holds very little for us, because the things we like to do is we like to go out to dinner with friends. We like to
there's none of that. None of that social getting outside of the norm of your regular life to spend time with people who share interests. Yeah, absolutely.
So I give Peter points for realizing something has to happen this year, because they can't totally slide. And look, I think the statistics and the odds are in their favor, because if you look at, I think we went from 10% of the population vaccinated to 20% in a week. I mean, that's, so if you're looking at the general progression of that, I don't think it's out of the question to think that we may have 50% of the people in the United States vaccinated by the summer. And so, I think that they're in they're in a good position. I question the fact they have to push it back a month. I don't know that
it's 6 weeks that they're pushing it back. Now, here about the vaccine, because I'm looking at key questions, and after that I want to touch on their pop-up Gen Con weirdness. At this time, we do not know whether or not vaccines will be required, though we strongly encourage all eligible community members to get vaccinated as soon as they are able. So we don't know, but they do know the health and safety measures will be determined as we get closer to the show based on public health guidelines. This will include potential combinations of mask wearing, temperature and symptom checks, and social distancing. Now, social distancing at Gen Con. How the fuck do you social distance?
You can't. No, not with 60,000 people.
You wear a hoop, right? You wear like a cone distancing.
Everybody has their own deep sea diving outfit. Where they walk around.
Everybody connected via tube to their CPAP back in their room that we all need.
Yeah, everybody, here's your plastic bubble. Just roll through the con. Each bubble is 3 feet radius, so you will have 6 feet between each of you. Come on, give me a
break. If you want to do it in the last year of the plague, before the vaccine is widely available, you might have to make some sacrifices.
All right, I just jerked my arm and I felt the pain. There's my
first shot pain. Dude, yeah.
That's my first shot pain right there. Oh,
yeah, I got you. I had that, and I had lethargy. I actually took my first nap and
let's see if I can get a little liquid help here from the.
I had my liquid help this afternoon at the pub. It felt good.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But here, pop up Gen Con. I want to touch on this because I'm not even sure what the during Gen Con weekend pop up Gen Con activities. That's right. Pop up Gen Con activates participating friendly local game stores. Friendly local game stores adapt their event to local health and safety conditions and requirements, determining how to structure participation in their community. Publishers' games available to stores for demos, events were allowed and purchase. What is a pop-up?
It sounds like Peter was a member of 4-H, and he thinks that
it's
that
marketing.
Style
it's marketing.
Of activity nationwide is going to fly with gamers. But it's not unusual, right? That was what the RPGA was, right? That lasted forever.
I think their market. It's a form of marketing. It's to say, look, we're going to try to get. Look, we know that
enjoy.
Get to the con, so we're going to try to bring the con to you. And I think it's one of those things that sounds great in a marketing meeting when somebody pitches it. Oh, that sounds great! Yeah,
enjoy WotC content in a WotC environment with WotC branding. Yeah, it's great corporate.
But I think when your average fan kind of looks at it and rolls their eyes, like, well, I'm not going to go to my local game store to play at Gen Con. That's
No.
and I think lots of ideas I think sound great, but I think when it comes down to actually implementing them, I think it doesn't really make any sense. And that, I mean, look, it could be a great success. I don't know, but I'm not interested in pop-up conventions.
I don't want to get in the way of their success. More power to them. I'm sure I will have something going on at any given pop-up Gen Con though. Like I have a pre-existing event in my life. I'm not certain, but probably, yeah.
Well, maybe they don't. Maybe one of the reasons they're so skimpy on details is maybe they don't know what a pop-up Gen Con is yet.
It could be that too. And the whole thing with their attendance cap. Priority for attendance will be given first to attendees who donated or rolled over their 2020 badge.
Which is good. That makes sense. I like that. I think that's a good idea.
If we believe that we can safely hold the convention for additional attendees, we may offer additional waves of badge availability. So again, that answers the question that we had at the beginning. This con will grow as they see. Oh, okay. Indy says we can now have an event with 10,000 people or less. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll open it up a little bit more. I wonder. Remember back at the turn of the century and earlier, before Gen Con became a 60,000 person con, you had other Gen Cons. You had Gen Con.
There was East, West.
West.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they're going to have to use that Gen Con name to get smaller regional cons going. If they're going to want to keep because people might not want to go to a 60,000 person convention even next year.
Right. Makes sense. Well, I mean, and it's a way for them to make money too. That they can, maybe they can go to these game stores and say, look, if you kick in $20, I don't know, $50, you're official partner of Gen Con. And like you said, Eric, maybe a smaller con could brand themselves as a arm of Gen Con, and then they pay a kickback to Gen Con and they get to use the Gen Con name. Maybe that's going forward something they want to do. And we've talked a lot of times about maybe the day of the 60,000 person mega convention's over, but as Courtney was saying earlier, if it wasn't here, it was offline, that people are just dying to get back in there. We're going to look, as soon as people can go back to conventions, they're going to cram back in there.
Everything.
And I think they're going to be crammed in there. And I think some people will be worried about the fact. I mean, I don't think I want to attend a convention like that ever again.
It doesn't matter what it is. Concerts, if you're going on a river float, everything when it's open is going to be sold out for months. Because people are so ready.
I think you're right.
They're done inside. They want to. It's like restaurants. It'll be like a boom period almost, right?
Well, it already is. I mean, listen, I hadn't eaten out since late summer or early fall, and I was outdoor seating. Now my local pub has a nice outdoor seating area that's kind of weatherized, and the indoor seating. Now that I have my second shot, and as my cardiologist told me after my first shot, he's like, "We can hit 50 your first shot. You're effectively immunized against death, serious hospitalization, and serious illness. Because you can still get sick, but you're not. It's not going to be serious." So Rich and I went down to our local pub around 1:00 for lunch. Now it's St. Patty's Day, but usually my local pub, St. Patty's Day, doesn't kick off till about 4:00. You get in there at 1:00.
The alcoholics are asleep until 4.
Well, yeah, and you get it's the I don't want to call it the geriatric crowd, but it's the retirees, including myself. So maybe on St. Patrick's Day you'd come in, maybe 4 or 5 people. My God, there had to be at least 24 people. Every table had people at it. One table in the back. We got what we affectionately call the confessional, which I like because it's closed on like 3 sides. So during the midst of the pandemic, it's the place to be if you're going to be any place in a pub. But I felt good, especially I was hearing all the conversations, people going, "Oh yeah, I got my second shot last week. Oh yeah, I got my first shot on Friday." Everybody's getting vaccinated here in New York, and it's good to that. And everybody was probably old and retired because it was again
that I have to tell you, Eric, that is the geriatric crowd you're talking about. But but pretend it's not. But I mean, the same thing in Texas, because I know after the governor, quote unquote, opened the state up, which really didn't do anything because businesses still have the ability to say, wear a mask. So it really didn't do anything. But There's a perception. My wife and I, there's a local Chili's we go to about once or twice a week. We know one of the waitresses there, and it's been pretty light crowds. Last week was ridiculous. It was packed. It was packed enough that we felt uncomfortable because we're like, I mean, this is too many people in this crowd. Even
Right.
people, because the thing is, you wear a mask to go in, but once you sit down, everyone takes their mask off. So you're looking at a whole giant room full of unmasked people is what it boils down
Right.
to. Except for the
Yeah,
waitresses, they have masks on. We're like,
Right. Yeah.
we don't really feel
Service had-
comfortable with this. We didn't feel
Service had
comfortable at all.
masks. And if you walk into the bathroom, you got to put your mask back on.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
when you
because
sit at the table,
But you're fine, but so you have 60 people are fine sitting at the table, but it's silly.
I don't know so much as it's fine. It's just like, how are you going to stop people? Like, I think that's kind of the question. It's like you can't, so you might as well make the best of the situation and try and install some guidelines, because people are going to come in and hang from your rafters and throw things. They're just like, I've run millions before. There's no, you create the safest environment that's possible, right? Like, there's not a lot you can do to force the situation.
So all respect to Gen Con, I mean, we're a small convention. There's the things we have to worry about are not even close to what they have to worry about. I mean, I don't envy them at all. And we're looking at, June, saying, okay, it's 2.5 months. Almost everybody I'm hearing from is getting vaccinated. So we may be at close to 95 to 100% vaccinated. But the problem is, you have a convention with 60,000 people. You're not going to have those kind of numbers. No. You're not going to have 95% or 100% vaccinated. With our crowd, I mean, plus we're older, we're talking older people anyway. I think we're going to approach 95% or more vaccinated. Gen Con can't count on that. They just can't count on it all.
It has been nice going the last 18 months without being physically ill. Like, if there's ever been, like, I haven't had as much as a runny nose or a sore throat the whole time. And I think that's kind of a testament to how disgusting germs are in general.
Well, and the fact is, it just shows that we could always have cracked down on. Look at flu. Flu was non-existent this year because why? Everybody's wearing a mask and they have, they've got. I mean, everybody's got their bottle of, stuff out here that they're wiping their hands on all day long.
For those of you that are listening, Bad Mike is not hyperbole. The flu literally does not exist this year. There is no.
But that just shows if we did that every year, we might not have the flu.
It's a cure for the common cold. It's like hygienic discipline. And all kinds of like complete social upheaval. That'll take care of it every time.
Yeah, it's like, well, never have physical contact with anybody but your immediate family ever again.
Yeah.
It's like,
we're just not willing to do that as a society.
No, I mean, we're not willing. We're barely willing to do it for 18 months. It's hard on people. Yeah. Who wants to do that? I want to go to giant gatherings filled with my family every week. Like, I assume most other people do too, right? Like, it's rough. It's been hard.
I mean, Thanksgiving and Christmas, my sister, my brother-in-law, my niece came over, but they all got tested, for COVID before coming over. Now, this year, since this whole household, my parents downstairs and Rach and I upstairs, are all vaccinated, we've basically got our own herd immunity going here. We can have unvaccinated people over and without fear for us. So, and that's just one household coming over. So they were already exposed to each other. If they were going to get it, they already got it from each other. So we'll have a normal Easter, which blows my mind after the year of 2020. But listen, you were healthy last year. I had the trifecta of fucking hospitalization. So
until the absolute end of the plague, I'm just going to wait until the plague is gone. It's like the plague. I don't see a reason to fuck with it, especially like when it's almost gone. I don't want to go out there and be like, "Oh, let me catch this before you leave." I
need my peace.
Heart problems. Really, give it to me.
We're gonna take a chance in Nortex. Like I said, 2.5 months. I'm feeling very good about it. I'm usually pretty risk adverse, but I think in this case, I think we'll be okay. And we're telling people, look, if you don't want to show up, no, we're not going to hold it against you, obviously. And I tell you, I think what's good about Gen Con is the same thing we do in North Texas. I like the fact they offered people just to roll their attendance over next year. If you don't feel safe, roll it over next year. That's what you should be doing. That's what we do at our con too. If you buy a ticket, it's good for pretty much really forever. until you decide you're going to use it. And that's one way you make sure that, people are, loyal to you and say, wow, that's great. I don't feel like I have to show up even though I'm sick, because isn't that the reason, like a lot of people, they show up for a job and they're sick all the time. This used to happen when I was, younger all the time. When I worked at a bank, savings and loan.
I've never known a company environment that didn't pressure people.
And you would sit there and people would be showing up in their deathbed, spreading their germs all over the office because I can't.
It is part and parcel with American culture.
Yes, and it was just ridiculous.
We're like, we have a Protestant work ethic. We were founded by people who got kicked out of England for being too uptight. Like, English people are not the loosest, most relaxed people in the world. Mm-hmm. Like, we're very driven and it shows in our economy, because we have a bunch of money, but we don't have like work-life balance. We don't have people who feel comfortable being like, maybe I shouldn't take this pathogen and spread it to a bunch of other people, because I fear losing my home. Like, that's an American type thought, right? I mean, like, your mileage may vary. I just think it's you go visit some other cultures and they have different ways of living. Like, I've lived in more laid back cultures. I was in Alaska for a long time and spent a lot of time with the Yupiks, and like, they're very laid back, but stuff doesn't get done. Like, you have to adapt to that, right? Like, you can't drop your car off and have it fixed. It gets fixed whenever, he's going to take care of it whenever. And that's going to be whenever he does it. Because if you don't run the society on money, you run it on, like, what people want to do, really. Goodwill, and things run differently, right?
It's always a trade-off, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there absolutely is always a trade-off. So every time I get frustrated about that, I'm just glad that the Postal Service is like a military organization, right? Like, they get where you say they're going to put something. And even during the pandemic, like, the shipping companies, when they're overloaded, it's still remarkably efficient.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this will be interesting to see what happens with this, and we'll I'm sure we'll hear more news about this during the year as more information becomes available, as they like to say on the news. Yeah, because right now that we just have a very general outlook from Peter and from Gen Con, but it does look like it's going to go on. Probably not the same circumstances it normally would, but I'm sure they'll get as many people to attend it as they want to attend it, because there's people out there, especially, look, we're of a certain age group. That I know people in their 20s, and honestly, they think, a lot of them think they're bulletproof, and I mean, for good reason. Sometimes, I mean, because the disease is not affecting those under 60 is the same way as or under 45 actually, right, as those above 45. So there's a lot of, I mean, look what happened in New York, Eric. I mean, you were there when, it was a freaking, party night when they opened the bars up every night.
I worry about the long-term impact. We don't know, like, and they did that with, like, with polio and the other diseases they've gotten rid of. Like, things change for people who get it when they're young and then they get it older. I would prefer to avoid not getting it.
I just remember when I was 21, and I mean, I'm going to be absolutely honest. If I was 21 right now, I wouldn't care, because I didn't care then. I didn't care about anything, and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is going to kill me. It's going to kill old man F-Wad over there. It's not going to kill me. I'm going to live be forever, man. Whoa, and that was me at 21. And so I'm sure
I remember college.
Things haven't changed much. So
it was a sequence of poor decisions that I miraculously survived. Now that I'm here, I'm more circumspect, right?
So Gen Con will have as many people, I'm sure, as they want, so whatever they should put the cutoff as, I'm sure that's probably what they'll hit. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I'm interested in going forward how conventions are going to look, how the whole landscape's going to look. I think it's going to change a lot. And as Dandelion said here, I mean, there's always going to have a San Diego. I mean, San Diego Comic Con is going to go on no matter what. It's a business. It's a gigantic business.
Right? Like, all of this aside, everything else, it's the literal golden age.
Sure.
My friend James Shields, who does art for my books and stuff, he's running a Kickstarter. He does stock art, and the whole thing is about pictures of people dying in traps. Like, I dreamed of a day when the pictures of people dying in traps need was unmet, and it's now being met. Like, is this not the adulthood we were promised? I remember talking a lot about playing D&D in retirement homes, but that is soon. Like we're going to be in retirement homes not long from now. Like this is happening imminently. You know, like this is the promised land, right?
Oh, I think James said he's going to show up at North Texas this year. So I'm
I
love
James.
James.
He was like, you're going to North Texas. And I was like, next year.
James, yeah. He has a Kickstarter, as Courtney said, going on. We're going to go ahead and pimp James because we both love James. So
yeah, we do. Like, what a talented artist! And I'm so thankful. He treats my work like he always has time for it, and he's so popular.
He's very, very humble too.
So
humble dude, very talented,
busy.
Extremely talented.
I'm thankful that he has time for me because he can work for anybody he wants.
His Kickstarter is called Dungeon Dangers and Devices. His art's great. Definitely give him a look.
It's absolutely top quality comic art for RPGs, and he is a voluminous producer. Like I have access to literally thousands and thousands of gigs of just art that he's produced in his stock art library. It's very nice.
Oh,
and
gosh,
I just realized interfaces, easy to use.
Yes, his Kickstarter has not backed yet. I'm going to back his Kickstarter.
Yeah, but it went live yesterday.
Okay.
For like 12 hours.
It said 12 days to go. I didn't know if he did it.
It absolutely did over half in its first.
Okay. Well, good. I feel better.
We're gonna have fun. But it's brand new for sure. It's exciting stuff.
Well, anyway, yeah, that's a good. I mean, his kind of guy he is. He came to the con a couple years ago. He had a big stack of art. He just handed it to me and Doug. He said, "Hey, if y'all need this for anything, if you want to sell it or auction or whatever." We're like, "Oh my god, original artwork from James Shields, like
amazing stuff.
We could do something with this, and it's great stuff. There's just original art that he just he had laying around. And he wanted to help support the con, so."
He has a real sense of history, and so there's a lot of subtlety of the artwork. Like he does callbacks and throwbacks to things, and it's just incredibly high quality. I don't know that I can say.
Yeah, James, you owe us. We're basically doing a commercial for your Kickstarter.
Listen, he did his cover. His work is on the cover of Swords, Wizard, Continual Light. That was actually stock art that nobody was using, and I was like, I'm grabbing this, and my niece was like, Auntie, this sells. She was so excited seeing it.
I love that quote. This sells. Yeah.
This sells. But here, I'm going to show something. And for folks at home, I was actually. What we got there? Courtney?
This is his cover for Mega Dungeon 4.
Oh,
so nice. He did that. Look, he put the price sticker up here as part of it. Of these bars down here at the bottom, and it looks kind of like a faded video game cover. It's so good.
Well, here I was actually messaging back and forth with James right before we went live, and I'm going to give a sneak peek to the viewers at home of an upcoming project. Because he did the logo for it, and I actually got finished tonight.
Oh, so nice!
I'm not going to say what the details are yet. For those that are listening at home, it's called Pub Crawls. It's just something I am working on putting together. So I figured before I delved deep into it, I wanted something that was going to capture the feel for it. And of course it is tavern related. So we have to have the look of a tavern sign going on. But I think James did a great, amazing job with that. So again, literally right before we went live, he messaged me, and I was like, James, this is awesome. I was like that. And what's funny is I gave a description kind of what I wanted, but he captured what I wanted.
Yeah. That's a super tough skill as a working artist. Yeah, that right there, because you can't give you what the client says. You have to give them what they want that they're not telling you. It's hidden. And James is good at sussing that out. Like, because he knows how to listen. He's a good listener. Yes. It's good stuff.
So when I was like so chomping at the bit when I saw it. I was like, oh my God, this is great. And I was like, I don't want to announce it, but so it's like a soft announcement. If you're watching this, you'll see this coming up in the next couple of months. Hopefully it'll be a regular feature. But no more details.
Nice.
No details for you. Nyah, 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 nyah. So D&D actually got mentioned on CNBC on their website or their news site. Dungeons and Dragons had its biggest year ever as COVID off tables and onto the web.
Guys, I have never done this in a show before. I'll be right back because I realized as a type 1 diabetic, I did not give myself an insulin shot this afternoon. I'm going to, since we're so health conscious here, I will be right back. You continue talking. I've never done this during a show. I am so sorry about doing this.
You don't have to apologize.
You don't need to apologize. I am a type 2 diabetic that
let us not cause shame over stuff that's outside of it.
I was on injectables over the summertime for my type 2 diabetes, but my numbers had really shot up with the congestive heart failure. And,
I think there's a misconception for a lot of people that diabetes is something you get because of poor behavior, and that's not true. Like type 1 diabetics, it's completely biological. It's outside of their control completely.
Type 2. I was a type 2 diabetic ever since I got treated for cancer.
Yeah, there's super number of factors. That go into type 2 development too, and having to take radiation is definitely a thing that can. Yeah. So I think it's important that we explicitly kind of address you shouldn't need to feel shame to give yourself the substance you need to live. I'm cool with that. That seems like an easy ask.
I will say my health challenges in 2020 did change my eating habits. I pretty much cook most of the meals that Rich and I eat now, so I know what I'm putting into my body. And I've even learned, through trial and error, it's like, all right, well, if I have pizza, I want to eat half a pie because pizza is just so easy to eat, and my numbers go to the roof. However, if I get pizza with broccoli and spinach and peppers on it, I'll eat 2 slices, and the vegetables will slow down my metabolism, and it won't spike my blood sugar. So learn
the grease isn't as positively. It's more positive reinforcement in the brain for grease than for
So you learn. So as of the fall, I was off injectables, and now I'm on Jardiance, which
I think originally, along with your original comment, going back to that, I think that it absolutely is true, and people don't understand the scale of it. D&D became a nationwide fad in 1982 and sold, I believe, there are no hard numbers on it, but around 3 million plus copies. But then 3E, the release of 3rd edition, blew that out of the water. They sold 5 million players' handbooks. And that was considered amazing. And they went on to sell a lot more. But 5th edition is of a scale unhereto undreamed of. It is beyond the success of any D&D ever at any point in history. There are 10 million people in the country with a weekly game. That is inconceivable, right? There's so many people in the market and buying D&D stuff that it is a literal golden age. That's what I have to say about that.
So, according to the article, Dungeons and Dragons saw sales jump 33% in 2020, and Courtney's touching upon, right now that's going to be mostly VTTs, right? I mean, people are going to Roll20, they go into Fantasy Grounds. Probably live it's Roll20 because it's the easy interface to find, which is a player you can tool around with for free initially. I
think most players are playing over Discord or Zoom. I don't think they're using VTTs at all. I think that they're just using chat programs. So I think the vast amount of online gaming activity is untracked.
Well, you know what? You might have
probably right. Yeah.
If you're looking at the games that are broadcasted on Twitch, a significant number of them are not on VTTs. They're on chat programs or local web setup. So I think there's a lot of that stuff that's not even tracked. I don't use a VTT, by the way. I'm one of those Discord holders.
You're allowed, Courtney. So now apparently Hasbro's going to launch 2 D&D video games this year. Interesting.
And they want to make money. The strike while the iron is hot.
Which will publish new books and box sets.
Dragonlance is coming now. They managed to get that worked out because they want the money.
Yeah.
You want it's gonna sell 1 million copies, no problem. 1 million will put you at the top of the New York Times bestseller list. Books don't sell that well.
Which even makes it more puzzling why they tried to 86 it with the lawsuit.
Because Tracy Hickman wrote a story about transgendered person that involved a love potion. I mean, I think it's pretty clear to see with his religious background how he might have said some unintended things. Am I allowed to say that? That's a pretty saucy take.
Eric and I say stuff.
I respect him, and but I've read his, like, he wrote those series of essays in the late '90s that were just they were difficult to. They contain some hot takes, as the kids would say today.
Right.
And so I mean, people can look them up if they want or whatever, but I'm almost certain they read it and they went, we can't publish this. This is going to get us crucified. And so I think it might have been a play to convince them how serious they were.
That's interesting take on it. Yeah, I mean that could be true, because I know the difficulties work out pretty quickly. You know, it's at least it seems to me. I mean, sometimes these lawsuits take forever, and so you know, the fact they worked it out so quickly tells me that you're right. I mean, they wanted this to happen really bad.
Yeah, they want so much money. It's turning down millions of dollars.
Sure. Yeah.
So now, what's interesting is D&D jumped 33% last year, and Hasbro does not share the specific sales totals for Magic the Gathering and digital gaming, which also falls under Wizards banner. However, Wizards revenue rose 24% in 2020, topping $816 million.
They made a killing in the pandemic year, for sure.
That's crazy. Yeah. But it makes sense. Everything falls into place, right? I mean, everybody's stuck at home, and hey, we can game on. Hey, let's game online. Gaming. I mean, we can still game. We can still game. We just game online instead of in person. And you know, gamers being sometimes we're antisocial. We've been being antisocial. We game from our house. It's great. Everything worked out perfectly. All the cards aligned.
I think too, there's these waves of popularity, and like there were a bunch of shows in the mid 2000s, like Community and Stranger Things, that sort of were these adult creators pushing their stuff. Yeah. And then that has been in the zeitgeist now for like 4 years. So the pandemic comes, everybody's kind of been hearing about it on the Big Bang Theory or whatever. They're like, oh, let's check this out. And then Wizards has its biggest D&D year ever. It makes complete sense. It just means that there's that many more people. Like, we're not the railroad hobbyists who are sad that nobody is playing with railroads anymore. There are new gamers every 30 seconds. And it's really wonderful.
I'll tell you something interesting. One of my side hustles, which actually might be my major hustle, I've been buying, selling, and trading games online since 1992, since I first got AOL. And I mean, Eric and I have talked about this in a past show about the prices of collectibles right now. When we speaking specifically of RPGs. This might have been one of the best selling years I ever had in my life. I mean, and we're talking, so, you know, even with all the unemployment last year and all the tough times a lot of people had, somebody out there was making money because somebody bought a crap load of my stuff.
Yeah, so the people who are well off are continuing to be well off.
They always are. Yeah. People that are making money are always going to make money.
Yes. And there's a huge demand for it. We've generationally moved past like the era of the original work. Like, a lot of those people are gone now, and the original work is starting to degrade. It's 30, 40 years old at this point, some of it. Yeah. And so it's like, it enters a new age where it has to be preserved because they're falling apart and the value goes up, right?
Yep. And I think that you have a lot of people also, as you guys were saying, you know, with Stranger Things coming out, with a lot of popular television and popular movies focusing on gaming, you have somebody that, you know, not like us, maybe they just got into games in the last 10 years, and so they're like, you know, hey, you know,
it's hard to even get a PDF of some of the classic material, right?
Oh God, yeah.
We have people every year that come to North Texas. That come to, they want to play in a first edition D&D game. They've never played one. They've only been gaming maybe 10 years. They played 5th edition, and maybe they played 3rd edition, but they've never played AD&D or OD&D. They come to a convention like ours specifically because there's people like Steve Winter, like Tim Cass, that'll be running these old school games. They want to see how they run, and a surprising number of them, they'll also sit there and go, you know, I think I want to buy a lot of these first edition modules. They look cool. They
are cool.
Retro. They look retro and cool. And
as far as quality goes, the first edition set of modules, the early VX modules, are really heads and heels above most of the stuff that's been written in the preceding 20 years. I think I could talk about this at length, but I'll give you the short version. I think they copied the form instead of the intent. Right? Like the first edition modules did what they did really well. And instead of thinking about that in the context of play, people wrote stories for like 20 years. And the OSR is kind of a rediscovery about like how to make things that are usable in play. This is where I pitched my module, Eyrie of the Dread Eye, which is a great example of a module designed for high level play.
Here's a couple of things I bought just last week. Because and these sell like crazy because they have the originals in there, plus they have the 5e updates. Well, they're doing something right because I think they're up to number 5 or 6 in their series so far. And so they're something about those is really hitting the zeitgeist of people saying, yeah, I want to see what Castle Amber or the Forbidden or the Lost City is, and I want an updated version of it. Yeah, that's the next one, right? Temple of Elemental Evil is the one that kind of.
I think part of what they didn't understand is each one is a specific type of scenario, a way to play D&D, right. And so they're archetypical in that sense, and they're designed really well for that. And then like. It becomes more difficult if you're just working from the material instead of like the original thought source and idea behind it, right? So you get this change in what's in the modules, and it moves towards, we were talking about earlier, the Weiss and Hickman era, where your characters are almost bystanders in the narrative that the module has made for you.
Well, one thing, Courtney, that Eric and I talk about, and hopefully you'll agree with this, is that we don't have the what they call the touchstones that we had back in the older era, because when we were, and I've probably told the story 3 times over the past 3 weeks, but when you got together in the 80s and you were a bunch of gamers, you say, well, Tomb of Horrors, what you guys do in Tomb of Horrors? Everybody there had played Tomb of Horrors.
There was only 12 things.
Yes, everybody had played them. Right.
At several points in my life, whether any RPG material would ever be produced again. Like this is, it's obviously an insane fear as an adult. But when you were a kid, maybe they didn't do anything next year, right? Yeah. Maybe it never came out again. There was public movement against it. Christians didn't like it, and like all the fantasy everybody had. What did we have? We had Conan. You get together and you talk about the Conan movies. You had the Beastmaster and Hawk the Slayer. It was only like 12 things. The Monty Python, the Holy Grail. You only had these touchstones for your fantasy friends. And so you get together and what do? You're comparing these stones. Nowadays, like it doesn't make any sense because they haven't read Vance. Right? Well, of course you're not going to understand the magic. It's silly if you're just trying to generate a magic system. Why aren't they all like Harry Potter wizards? But then you understand the source material. For Hard the Grey Mouser and Fred Zaberhangen's Book of Swords and all the Le Guin stuff, all the origins of the fantasy stuff, and it makes a lot more sense.
Sure, and you've also got to the point where some of these touchstones, they don't even register with kids. I mean, there's kids going around, they have no clue who Gygax was. And I've heard people say that, like, well, who's Gary Gygax? I know he did something with D&D way back in the day. I mean, they don't know, but they legitimately don't know because it's just not part of our,
I welcome the children and their exploratory ignorance into our hobby. They don't have to know who Gygax is. They can sit down and play D&D with me.
No, that's exactly true. Yeah, and they don't have. I sometimes get mad at grognards that go absolute ape-ass on kids like that. But they don't, what's their frame of reference? They don't know. Maybe they were born in 2000. I mean, they don't know what's going on.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. Like Gygax changed his mind 8 times before breakfast anyway. I've looked at what he wrote online. He directly contradicts himself all the time. It's fine. They don't have to know who he is. It's not going to change anything.
And then the fact that Gales killed the Gygax name.
That's a sadness.
Now we don't have anybody.
Started, Mike. Don't get me started.
You chose that to trigger Eric. I know you are.
Yeah.
I triggered Gale. By the way, I got positive feedback last week on triggering Greg Gillespie from no one other than our buddy. Oh gosh, I forgot. I can't remember. Anyway, let's talk about
To
something
be
else.
fair, he leaves himself open to being triggered.
There you go.
low-
Think
Well,
about
well, no, because you just mentioned Star Wars, and then it's like Greg
What,
Gillespie
James
goes
Bond?
off. James Bond, that was it. I can't remember James Bond's name. James Bond was just giving me a hard time last night, and he goes, "Oh, by the way, I enjoyed the way you triggered Greg." I said, "Well, it's easy, just." And then so I know that
It is.
I know that Eric has his triggers too, though. There's 3 or 4 things I can bring up if I want him to kill 15 minutes yelling about something. So yes. But I didn't mean to trigger him in
no,
this case.
that's not a. Just yeah, come on, we're good. We're good friends. And I'd be happy to ignore Gail and ignore the fact that there's money apparently not being used for this wonderful project of the.
She's experiencing
memorial.
dementia, right?
I can
Man,
either
I am
confirm
not
or
gonna
deny.
She's
I'm not
running
gonna
around her
speculate.
house trying to keep the investigators and their cameras from. I mean, it's like clearly.
Listen, according to her, somebody tried to break in and kill her, but I can tell you right now, if it happened, it wasn't me. Okay.
You have an alibi.
Alibi?
No matter what, I never threatened.
You want me to do my best Peter Falk?
Yeah,
One more thing.
I never called her a certain word. I did joke that she would try to trademark it, but hey, that was said in jest. But before we
But anyway, yeah. So the Gygax name is so there's a lot of kids now that don't know who he is because there's nothing of Gygax's in print anymore.
No.
But that they like you were saying.
Well, the rogue is
Vance, yeah, Vancian magic is not. I mean, look, Jack Vance isn't easy to find anymore. You can't walk in your local game store and pull a Jack Vance book off the shelf
not
like when I was a kid.
Is
So
there a current printing? I don't think there's a current.
I don't think there is. I know that some of the stuff. Luckily, stuff like Conan has had some recent prints, but there's a lot of this stuff. It's not available to the general public, or it's not popular anymore to the point where people realize the roots of the hobby.
Well, I think D&D is broad enough that it's got people who are going to use it without looking into its history and origins. Like I think when certain things reach a level of popularity, people in the mainstream just enjoy it without really going too in depth into it, right? I just think we've ensured our future relevance. Even if it shrinks in the future, there'll still be people.
Well, especially if you have, I think one of probably the most amazing things of the last few years is the fact that the whole D&D aspect of Stranger Things, which was a monster hit, Stranger Things, and just the fact that a lot of at least the first season especially revolved around Dungeons and Dragons. That's the kind of cultural shot in the arm that you can't buy with money. I mean, good Lord. That was just, I had people.
Well, it was in E.T. too. Remember, it was the same thing. Like you got that big movie, and then it's all over from '83. Like the boxes in every store.
I had tons of people that I kind of knew that I'd run into, like, oh my gosh, you must have watched Stranger Things, right? There's a bunch of D&D stuff in there. I'm like, well, yeah, I watched it. Yeah, it was pretty cool. But they knew that I had played D&D, and so immediately, that's the first thing they see.
Yeah, they want to talk to you about where they saw the thing that you identify with. Yeah, absolutely.
And then the second thing everybody asked was, do you have a Demogorgon miniature? I'm like, I do. I have a Demogorgon miniature.
Wow.
So that was.
It was a very popular miniature back in the day, right?
Very popular.
Lots of people had it. It was mini.
So yeah, that kind of stuff, it helps the hobby a lot. It's probably another one of the many reasons. I mean, look, WotC didn't buy that advertising. That's just gold.
Somebody asked if he should make his players face Warduke, and I have Kellic and Warduke and all the people in my campaigns. I generally run in Mystara, and I just put them in Karmikios. They're all from there. If you're going to play D&D, you might as well play D&D, right? Morgan Ironwolf will show up. We get our own secret history. You don't want to make them like DM NPCs where they're super important, but you definitely have them interact with them, and let the players do what they want. It is beautiful. I think that it took me a long time as a DM to stop saving things. Just use it now. There'll be more stuff to use in the future.
That's a great point. That's actually a great point, Courtney, because I've hit
that.
We
feel that as DMs, right? You feel it. I'm going to save that for something.
Well, you've got more years behind you than in front of you now, so you're like, wait, what am I saving it for? I don't know what my next campaign's going to be. I was just telling. Well,
and it throws other DMs, because a lot of players, they won't ever use their stuff. And like, if I have a potion, the next fight, we're drinking it and using it, like let's go. Cause when are you going to have the chance, right? The campaign's going to,
if you die with it, then what good did it do?
Well, yeah, we've had enough campaigns, that you've run over the years that stop that, and then you're sitting there looking at the guy's character sheet 10 years later, going, "He had all this shit on him he never used. Good Lord, this is ridiculous." Yeah, so we were playing. We played our Highfell campaign again last week, and we had I think it was our 18th session, and we were talking about the fact that all the years we played, we're like, did we ever keep track of sessions we played? Because we're trying to think about the most. Because we only play once a month, so we're not really playing a lot. And back when we were kids, we play every weekend. We play every weekend for like years. We're talking.
You get together. That's what you do. You get the gas money together. You get everybody at the same house. You play for 2 days straight.
But I think back then we were talking about back then is you never knew one of these games was going to be the last game of that campaign. You never knew what it was going to be.
Welcome to life.
Yeah.
Someday your pet's going to die. We don't have any say over when things leave.
Right.
I hear you. That's part of it.
So
I got one of those. I've got Gloomhaven, right? That game, and I'm playing with my friends, and it's like tear the card up. I'm like, okay, they're losing their minds. When are you going to come back to Gloomhaven and need all the cards? It's 47 sessions of adventure as it is. Like, but they don't. They people pretend. They think, oh, nothing's going to happen to me. I'm going to live forever. It's not true.
No, you're absolutely right. And because we were talking about the campaign we're playing in now, they're like pulling out. They want to pull out all the stops because there's something going on right now that's going to require a huge showdown. Like, let's delay it. Let's delay it. I go, what are you guys delaying?
No,
we're in the world of COVID, where we're all over 50, and who knows what's going to happen. I said, look, I was telling them, like, if you guys want to do it, you do it. I'm the DM. I do. I just react to whatever you do. Don't ask me if I'm ready for you to do this incredible thing where you're gonna go in the city and kick ass on the archmage of the city because you think he's behind all this. Just do it, because you don't have this may be the last week we play. I don't know.
There are a lot of players who like to be guided, who like to feel like they're making the right choices. I think that's valid too. Like, I like to reassure people. It's a complicated thing running a game. It's not simple.
Yeah, it's different.
Right.
Well, sometimes a plethora of options is too many, and they can't make any choice. Sometimes you have to trim down the options so they can make a choice.
It would be nice if there was like a single skill that made us good DMs. But the fact is that managing a milieu is a complex, multidisciplinary activity, right? And it requires like levels of emotional maturity and common backgrounds and no communication inhibition. Like, it's an actually complicated task. And I think people want to reduce it and make it easy and make it seem, and like it is on a certain level, but like anything that's simple to play, it's hard to master. And so I think that it is okay to have discussions about like when agency starts to be impacted or whether you made the right move, because there aren't objectively clear decisions about this. It's about human communication and emotion, right? So that's a challenge. And I think if you treat it like that, it becomes a lot healthier of a gaming environment for sure. Then you don't get people saving things past their death. You get it used in play right then.
Well, you can't, like in real life, you can't take it with you.
No. Well, I mean, maybe you can. Who knows?
Well,
I'm not the boss person. Maybe show up all of your Nintendo games in the next life. I have no idea.
Yeah, I guess like a Viking, right? Like, put it onto my boat and burn it with me. Take all my game books and into the backyard and put a funeral pyre out there and just light them up, and then my ashes will go where they got to go up my AD&D books. And somebody out there's gonna be going, "Fuck!
It's beautiful.
You know how much that's worth?"
Well, I recently just started having a huge sell-off of all my gaming, or a lot of my gaming items, because I had one of those realizations. Like, I just turned 58. We're dying
wow,
from
you're
pandemics.
Old, that's old.
And that's
so
I'm just
ahead of me.
No, I'm just saying is that after a while you start looking at it and I'm like, I've had two really good friends pass away in the last few years that had very large gaming collections, and one gentleman was not married, so his mother was left to deal with it. Another one was married, his wife, who had absolutely no knowledge or interest in the collections left with it. And so in both cases, I was asked to step in and help, and it's a lot of work for me because I got my own things going on too. And I love both the guys, so I've been helping out. But it makes you think, is this what I'm going to leave for my wife and my family?
There's definitely like a sense of loss. Like we are losing people, and so I'm thankful for who we have left. But you never know. But it is happening. I've personally lost people that were friends and members of my community. They passed. And like society-wide, we've been experiencing a lot of sorrow. Sure. Especially people in our age group. Like it's hard, the isolation and everything else. So I don't want people to feel alone. Like I get it. Like there's going to be COVID's ending. There's going to be a lot of change coming. People are going to be breaking up with the people they were cohabitating with. People are going to be going out in public. There's going to be a lot of change. And you don't want people to feel isolated. I've lost too many people in this field to suicide or like drug abuse for themselves because of like their sadness. And D&D is a way for us to have community and bring happiness, right?
Sure.
We need to share that. Sorry, I am incorrigible when I talk. I like
we don't mind. No, we don't mind at all. We had we had Douglas on a couple weeks ago, and he's I'm sorry, what's Doug's last name? I can't remember. Cole. And you just listen to the guy talk because he knows so much about games and gaming and how everything goes. He makes Eric and I look like cavemen. So he's just sitting there talking, and we're just sitting there like, okay, wow.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what he's talking about. It's so amazing. He's just so So no, definitely. Whatever you have to say it, because we love to hear different opinions and different takes.
Well, like part of it is I think I'm a writer illustrator. Like I think that's my job. And in order to do this yourself and make it a career, you also have to be everything else. And I've been looking a lot online about how people present themselves, and like, I don't want to be the guy that I'm listening to that I find annoying. And it's a really interesting puzzle how to approach that, how you be appealing online, right? And still be authentic, because you don't want to be inauthentic, right? And so like that's really where a lot of my professional thought goes towards, is how I'm not producing entertainment on Twitch. I'm working in my studio that's openly broadcast, but I'm in an environment where people are seeking entertainment. So how do I walk that line, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. How do I manage my social media in a healthy way where I can talk to people and connect about my products, but not deal with extremists who want to involve you in drama, which is not the majority, but it's the ones that will definitely interact with you if you're achieving attention on social media.
Yeah, because they're the ones that want the attention. They're the ones that need the attention.
Well, I mean, they're acting out their own crises, right? Like I see a lot of people where they've become empowered. They've been hurt their whole lives, and then they figured out a way to hurt other people. And it just happens to be on Twitter instead of, being passed down inside a household with alcoholics, right? Like it's just a different environment. And I don't mean to make little of the activism that's being done. There's a lot of good work, but like you can obviously tell based on some people that they're angry about something that happened to them and not a specific thing you did.
Right.
Maybe
it's a transfer
that reminds them of that, or
I remember when I used to when I was working patrol as a cop, a lot of times you'd get to a job that you got called to for whatever happened, really domestic, and you had to listen to more than just the words that were coming out, because you had to find the subtext of
what's really going on.
What, but what's really the issue? Because listen, if you're going to be a good cop, a lot of what you're going to be is an unofficial social worker.
No, and like I did psych for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Like that was my previous career, and that's all it is. It's figuring out what's really going on, and like because people are motivated in very specific and regular ways, right? Like it's fascinating because people would come in with paranoid schizophrenia, and like paranoid schizophrenia always presents the same way. Like, and you'd find it weird, but you'd meet 10 totally different people from totally different socioeconomic backgrounds who are fully convinced that the people they care about are slipping them poison and they can't figure out why. And you're like, that's a very odd, specific like obsession that happens just particularly with this type of schizophrenia, right? And I think that when you're talking about putting yourself in situations where, as a society member, you have to help people integrate with society, that you have to be aware, because there's no telling what people will do. Like, and it is sometimes shocking, like watching somebody who you're not expecting just jimmy open and break open a door because they decided they wanted to walk outside, and now it's something everybody has to deal with, right? Like it's a rough task, I think, challenging.
And social media brings that into more people's
it
homes.
puts you right in the middle of it. Like if I were going to state an opinion and everybody in the world would hear it, I guarantee you a significant percentage of them would disagree. Why would I expect even a significant fraction of the world to agree on any random thing I think? And Twitter is not just the world. It's the world with a little computer that's motivated to put what you said in front of the person it makes angriest.
Yes.
Right? Like that's the model. That's their business model. Find who this upsets the most and put it in front of them so that people will be where we are. And like that's terrifying. There's so many terrifying. The Facebook gift selector is like what I would design a living nightmare to look like. You put in a theme and you get a badly formatted random array of squares of random violent images on that theme that have no coherence whatsoever. It's a nightmare. I don't understand how people are functioning with this I don't know who made it, but whoever it is, it's like in the Good Place where they go, oh, this is the bad place, where they suddenly remember that Facebook is not helpful at all, and it's actually just a nightmare machine.
Well, listen, I've been asked by creators that don't necessarily do much social media. It's like, how can I get myself out there on social media? And the first thing I was like, join groups on Facebook, avoid the wall, avoid personal feeds, go to groups that match the interests, match what you are, the fields or the area of the gaming that you are working in, because it's going to be more focused on gaming and less focused on drama. When you look at
yourself, you have to put yourself at risk, and you have to talk to people who are interested in your communities. I was lucky because I had G+. Now after the diaspora, it's much more challenging. Mm-hmm. Like I think a lot of my success was just due to how easy it was to propagate ideas through G+. And now there's all these different city states, there's MeWe over here and the different Facebook groups, and then they're radically opposed Facebook groups, even about gaming, right?
Oh my God. There's
one, the Discords are the same thing, right? Yeah. And then there's people out there.
Mike for a second.
Did we talk bad Mike out of the room?
Yeah, he's probably pulling his shirt off. Just joking. He'll be back.
Okay. I didn't want to. I offhandedly offend people all the time, and I'm terrified of doing that.
Oh, look who you're talking to.
But there's a bunch of people listening, and they like to get really angry. So I have anxiety later. I think back about everything I said, and I was like, did I?
I told you Mike would be back.
I got all excited and did something. I pushed a button, and okay, so I was all excited about what we were talking about, and then it's all gone. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We're not talking about it anymore.
Yeah, we already passed that. We want a different topic.
Oh, damn. Okay. Well, shoot.
You have to make the connections. You
do.
And there's a type of person who views morality as transitive, right? And I don't. Because I spent years working with rapists. If morality was transient, I'm a damned person. I would often work with abusers downstairs and their victims upstairs, just because you're in a small area and you get whole families in sometimes, right? But so I don't believe that you can be corrupted by the people you spend time around, because if I did, there wouldn't be any hope for me, right? I spent most of my life around the economically disadvantaged, drug addicts, abusers, 5 years in Alaska doing. And so there are certain people online that if you have any sort of association, if you follow or read a certain person and that information is displayed publicly, you get assigned into a shifting web of appropriateness, right? And that, to me, I pay attention to all kinds of dangerous people that I don't believe in what they say, right? I just don't want to be blindsided by it. So I don't understand that. But like, there's certain Discords that won't let you in because you've been in other Discords. Does that, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh no, listen, I'm banned from certain Discords because I'm Tenkar. So it is what it is. I've had people. The reason why Tenkar's Tavern is under moderation is because I had the backlash because I dared post that Alexander Macris had a new Kickstarter out. It might have actually been yours.
They hate him specifically. Like, yes. and it's so insane, right? Like he had to, I mean, I think he had to. I think that's obviously, like, no natural law forced him to. But there was a claim that he had a hoard of Nazi gold and was sitting on nuclear missiles. Like, at that point, it's just whatever. Like, they've lost the thread. The man does not have nuclear missiles. He lives in North Carolina taking care of his very sick wife. Like, I don't know what these people are thinking, but that is not the case. I mean, like, he may not be the best person in the world, but there are no good actors like in the RPG space. Like, if I'm going to pick a publisher, somebody's going to have a problem with them. I just want to eat. Like, so if somebody wants to publish my work and they're not, actively in the process of committing murder or genocide, I'm down. I'm not a judge. I'm an artist. I'm supposed to have low moral character and be deviant and interact with inappropriate. It comes in the job description. It says.
Cheers. I'll drink to that.
I don't believe anybody was canceled, and I know that that's not everything other people believe. I think that that's, like, it's a weird social thing that human beings always do. They always try to ostracize other people. Monkeys always try to ostracize people out of the group. So I don't know. I don't think it's new or different. It's the same.
It's all a power trip.
You read cuneiform tablets, and they're doing that. So-and-so has shitty copper, and he keeps coming to my town and trying to pass off this copper as good copper when it's low-quality copper. That's what's on cuneiform Facebook posts. It's the same shit. It's a different day.
But my personal opinion is that the majority of these the angry mobbers, whatever their political background is, makes no difference. As kids, they were bullied, and now they have a medium that they feel that they can. I can get back, and
that's some armchair psychology, Eric. I'm calling you out on that. That's ridiculous. We would need some science. I think that people are.
No, we don't need. I don't need fucking science.
I think that there are.
This is YouTube. We don't need science.
No, we just need to talk just say things like that. Is some specious bullshit, and I'm not going to stand for it. It's just there's no support for that. What we have is certain people are judgmental and deferential to authority, and others are not. And it has been that way forever, and it will be that way forever. And we're just going to have to learn how to live with each other. Like, it's way better now than it was 1,000 years ago, and it's going to be way better 1,000 years.
Okay, well, Courtney, I'm going to float you my theory that you're going to shoot down and call me an idiot. But here's my theory.
I'm not calling you an idiot.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm giving you a hard time.
Cannot make a claim.
No, but okay, here's my claim. Here's my claim, and this has no basis in reality, but I believe that one of the issues we have, and the problem with the internet, is because in years past, when you had a mentally ill person, they generally were mentally ill by themselves, and they were mentally ill in their own apartment.
Yeah,
and they didn't spread their mental illness.
It's a big problem.
So now, when you have this mentally ill person gets on the internet, and they find another mentally ill person that's mentally ill in the same way they are. They're like, we're together, and pretty soon you have 50 or 100 people that are all mentally ill in the same way. And years and years and decades ago, they would have never come in contact with each other. It wouldn't have been a problem. But now they can. I mean, how did you get people that
maybe get stigmatized?
Okay, well, maybe not that. But I mean, how do you get so many anti-vaxxers?
Losing their mind over that.
You got anti-vaxxers because you wouldn't have anti-vaxxers before the internet, but now you have a whole society of anti-vaxxers because they all got together on the internet. They all found each other, and they all formed these Facebook groups.
I want to be clear that is not true. Since the introduction of vaccines in the 1840s, from the genesis of vaccination, there have been anti-vaxxers. What we were lucky enough was there was enough media control between 1950 and 1980 that we were able to eradicate it. That's the anomaly. The normal state is anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers, because if you look historically, they've existed for the
well, that was just an example.
Secondly, I don't think we want to call people mentally ill. Everybody has a unique mental thumbprint, let's say. And like George Carlin says, the average of our general assessment of functioning, of our IQ, of the things the average is where 50% of people are, right? And so what people do with people who are not functioning well in the lower 25 or 30% of society has always been an open question. In the 1800s, they put them in cages and poked them with sticks. And in the 1970s, they locked them in rooms and shoved food in there. And now we have, like, social services that try and raise their quality of life, and part of that is giving them internet access.
And it's social networks where they can get on and
that is exactly right. That be influenced by propaganda. That is a genuine, authentic problem that has no easy solution. That both solves the issue of, oh my God, the idiots are organizing, and respecting their individual human rights to not be dictated to by an authoritarian state. Like, it's complicated. I don't have any answers. I just draw D&D maps. So I'm really wondering about the people who are all fucked up at me about it. Like, I don't seem relevant to that problem. Like, did they get eaten by Orcus? That's an in-range, in my wheelhouse question. What should the economic system of the United States be? I'm not passing judgment on people. I'm not an economist. How am I going to know?
Well, see, Courtney, if you weren't successful, you wouldn't be a target.
That, by definition, anybody who achieves any sort of notoriety is immediately going to attract negative attention. Who doesn't? What star, what person that you can name that everybody knows doesn't have somebody that will talk shit about them, right?
Yeah.
You just have to accept it, I think. And that's what I did last year. I was down about it. I was having the COVID dumps where everybody's self-doubt, and I withdrew a lot, and I didn't know. But then I was just like, well, shit, this is better than any warehouse job I ever had. So let's go. I'll suffer that. Like, if they want to talk shit about me, I'll learn to cope. At least I don't have to sit in a meeting where somebody's trying to touch my base. A waste of time, right?
John Miller, Talking Crit, fearlessly grappling with today's tough questions.
Yes, we do. We take on the tough questions here. Star Wars, Dallas Cowboys last week, and then with Courtney, we're studying mental health issues. Yes,
I have a history and the Star Wars a grievance. All right.
It's my pet peeve, my history, right? I working with disadvantaged, nobody is a bad person. I promise. They just got raised in a tough situation, found the best coping skills they could, and don't integrate well in society.
And I'll tell you what, sometimes, Courtney, I have to say the people that say bad things about Eric and myself, not always the same people, different people, I do have to, every once in a while, have to step back and remind myself of that. Yeah. There's always, it's like any supervillain, there's always an origin for that supervillain, right? I mean, Dr. Doom had to wear his mask because he got blown up in extra. I mean, there's always some reason this person became what they became. It's really, sometimes it's hard to remember that.
A lot of the things that people are doing and saying anyway are performative activities to achieve in-group acceptance anyway, right? Like, that's how they show their solidarity. I think one of the reasons that people were so angry with me is that I crossed an ideological line, right? Like, I was hanging around with a bunch of liberals and communists. And those are different things, by the way, but they were both there, right?
Right. And
I was given a narrative, and instead of accepting the narrative, I went and I talked to the other guy, and I was like, your narrative is bullshit. And the offense there, the crime, is the ideological betrayal, that I didn't trust what the group said, and instead I did my own research. And that's just a behavior of any sort of extremist group, right? They want to inhibit your judgment. And I'm more interested in feeding myself and not being a miserable human being. So it's moved on. Like, I got to write these books. They're not going to write them.
Well, there's an artist in the industry that's extremely left-wing liberal. I won't name who he is, and he was. Somebody had asked him once about, why are you doing work for X Games? I'll just say X Games, not say what the company was.
There's like 10 people that what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and they said, this company is known for this guy, and they're quote unquote a conservative company. How can you do work for them? He said the same thing you said, Corey. He goes, I got to feed my family. I mean, if I was going to limit my work to people that I only ideologically identify with, I wouldn't be able to eat.
Yeah.
And
how am I going to work in psych?
I
guarantee I got nothing in common with any of these people. Like, so what am I going to do? Like, you you do it.
I mean, that's what human beings do. Is you do your job, you work, and you don't always get to pick and choose who you work with. I mean, that's a chosen few that you actually get to. I mean, I buy and sell stuff on, online. I can actually say I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to buy anything from you. I don't want to sell to you. I have the ability to do that, but only in that part of my life. Am I able to say, I can do what I want? But I mean, that's the way I've geared my life towards, so I don't have to work with idiots I don't like. And unfortunately, I work at Frog Guys. I work with a lot of idiots. No, I'm just kidding.
You do
love those guys. Love them. Love all the guys.
You gotta, make sure you.
I mean, it's better. It's better making fantasy books than making like widgets or like shower caps or whatever.
But there's a whole, and I mean, Eric knows exactly what I'm talking about because we know these stories behind the scenes. There's a whole sideline of you can't work with this person because they might have did this or something.
Oh, yeah.
And then you sit there and go, but I gotta eat. I've got to feed my family, and I want to create. Unless I have my own company.
Yeah.
There
are definitely politics. There's no question. Like people will say, they will apply pressure to a company if they forgot a company is working with. Like that happens. When does it not happen?
Right.
Yeah.
Like I have never worked in a field where it wasn't like that.
Sure.
As soon as I'm in the medical field, everybody in the medical field knows everybody else in the medical field locally. Like you work with all the nurses, you've been to all the doctors, like you know who everybody is. Like it always happens. It doesn't matter what field you're in. So okay. I'd rather be making drawings of fantastic animals and coming up with cool ideas than my other options. Money doesn't motivate me, right?
With me at the tail end of the Google Plus era, the complaint against me was that I was not using my influence for good.
Yes, no, that's a big issue. But then also the fact that
they define good.
A community died and had a diaspora because of the impending end of the community. I think it drove a lot of people to take actions that they felt safe to take because they didn't have to worry about maintaining the public good, the public common area anymore because it was disappearing. They didn't have to worry about bumping into you on threads because all the Google threads were going away. Yeah. So they could say, things without fear of compunction, without compunction about some sort of consequence.
No, you're right. Because I was just like, it's like, oh, how dare you not talk politics and social issues on your blog? You have a voice. You would need to use it for. No, I don't. And
well, I mean those are actually legitimate, nuanced questions, right?
Oh,
do people who have access to people have an obligation to support social causes?
Well, a lot of I've
pro-vaccination, for example.
Well, look at some of
it depends on what the cause is, right? That's a factor. There's a nuance there.
Yeah, to me, there's a separation between my gaming hobby and the quote real world. And in my gaming hobby, I don't need to have discussions of quote real world.
You do understand the argument that the fact that you get to have that separation is what makes what the privilege they're talking about is.
Oh yeah.
Because I play with a lot of people, they don't get to be like, oh, whatever. Like they're black all the time. Like they don't get to be like, I don't have to consider this.
See, and there's a reason why, like in the communities that I manage, that I have that policy, and it's because the conversations are important ones. They certainly are, but they're not a conversation that can be effectively done in Tenkar's Tavern's Facebook group, because nobody there is going to be able to moderate the conversation that's going to go off the rails, because the vast majority have a decent conversation about that, yes. But you got assholes on the left, you got assholes on the right, and you got assholes in the middle, and they're the voices that everybody's going to hear, and they're going to rile people up.
Yeah, and I'm playing devil's advocate a little, poking at you because, like, I'm here in public. I want to be definitely seen to be pushing back on some of these things.
That's exactly it. There are better places for these conversations.
Is the comment section of my Discord? Is the comment section of my first Kickstarter where we should be talking about the social responsibilities of the creator of another RPG? Like, I'm just thinking maybe that's not the appropriate forum for that, right? Like you're welcome to say that. I can't do anything about the comments that are there. But like, if we're really going to address that doesn't seem like the right space. There seems to be another space.
And that for me, it's there are appropriate places for these conversations. That's what they say. family holidays. You shouldn't be talking religion and politics at the dinner table because it ain't going to be good.
Again, it's complicated. I grew up when the RPGA. I mean, like I'm an old gamer. Like I was playing back in '82 or whatever when I was a little kid, and I remember being a teenager and the RPGA explicitly outlying any sort of homosexual characters or depiction. There was fights about that, and frankly, I wish at the time I was a kid. I wish I would have spoken up more. But now I'm an adult, and it's the same thing. It's just different people now, right? And like that's bullshit. It was bullshit then. It's bullshit now. But I'm not trying to be like my job is to come up with a weird picture and an exciting adventure, and that's what I'm going to stick to. Like my opinions shouldn't be relevant to, they're not harmful. I'm not holding evil opinions. It's not relevant to me writing an adventure.
Exactly. There is a certain, like, dare I say it again, separation.
I mean, maybe
that a civil society, again,
I'm not the arbiter. Like, I don't know. I don't make the rules. I just try not to get shot.
Let's be honest. Nobody makes the rules, okay? That's the whole thing. You can make rules for little communities that you supervise, you manage, but in the world out there, there's no safe places. That safe space is, my opinion, bullshit, because when you walk down the street, there's no safe space. Okay, you got to deal with people in the grocery store. You got to deal with people at the bank, online, on a bus, on a train.
I think recognizing that people should take self-care to remove themselves from the necessities of societal obligations is healthy. I don't know that we need to either like put that on a pedestal or denigrate it. I think just acknowledging that people may want spaces that they are not under attack. I am in a lot of spaces where I'm not under attack, but it was in my 20s before women told me how, when they were in those spaces, they were considering how threatening everybody else was. And like, I think it's okay to have spaces where people don't have to worry about threats. I don't know anything beyond that. I think talking about it in a certain way is just propagating a certain ideological possession or idea that goes around, right? To align yourself with somebody. I don't want to align myself with any of these assholes. Like anybody, I just want to sell a book. Like, can I do that without alienating anybody? It's very unlikely.
It's tough.
Probably not.
There was
Am I making you laugh, Eric? I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
Don't be mad at me.
No, you are making me laugh because you're right. You can't. The idea that you can please everybody is a fallacy.
Well,
Disney likes to think they can do it.
Yeah, there's a Dallas Maverick basketball player a few years ago who, and I can't remember what the problem of the day was. It was some great problem in society. God knows what it was back then. But he was asked this during an interview after a game, and he just kind of paused. He says, "Guys, I'm just a basketball player." He said, "I mean," and it was absolutely true because I'm a basketball player. I mean, if you want to ask me about basketball, fine. But and he got attacked for that.
I'm sure he's got opinions about basketball that are relevant. Yes.
How dare he not offer his opinion about, du jour, very important, subject of the day. But what he was just saying is, look, that this is, like you were saying, Courtney, this is his safe space. This is basketball. He doesn't want to get into the great problems of the world after a basketball game when he just scored 45 points or something. He just wants to talk about, do basketball.
Yeah, it's not new. When they invented writing, there are so many recordings of people who are describing the ways writing is going to destroy human society. Your brain will no longer be able to retain information. Nobody will bother to learn anything. They'll write it all. It doesn't matter what the advance is or what the change is. Nobody wants it until it happens, and then everybody has it, and it's fine. The number of people rolling over in their graves because things aren't doing the way they thought they should be done in 1297 is infinite. Like, it's just
thank God they're already dead.
It's like, the future is going to be so radically different than whatever your values are that it's pointless, I feel, as an individual to even have if you go back in time and you ask anybody 10 questions, they're going to get every single one of them wrong. Why do we think that 1,000 years from now, somebody coming back in time and asking us 10 questions, we're going to get any of them right? They're going to start uplifting animals at some point in the future, and what dolphin and ape rights and species stuff we haven't even thought about, the genetically modifying kids. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe
See, now,
maybe every one of us that ever ate an animal will be considered a butcher.
Absolutely.
In the
future.
future. We're sitting there yelling at
cannibal.
people. We're going, we're yelling at racists back in the 1950s because they should have known better. Maybe we should have known better now. Maybe 100 years from now, like, how dare you didn't know that tuna have consciousness? You were eating tuna. You just sick, despicable human.
The past is a foreign country, and you cannot impose. That's actually a huge component of intersectionalism. You cannot impose your expectations on another culture, right? And that's what everybody has been doing for all of eternity. Like, like this is good, that is bad, and it's just random. What's good and what's bad. It's just what each individual society decides, right?
And it may change. It could change in our lifetime.
It changes all the time.
It could change back and forth, and I could go from one side to the other, back, and who knows?
The in fiction, it's the Apollonian Dionysian duality, right? There's a pendulum, and it swings between order and chaos in regular time. So yeah, absolutely, it's a thing.
Whew. Well, why don't you go ahead and pimp your?
Are you exhausted, Mike?
I'm having a great time, but I could talk another hour. But we're up to 2 hours here, so
we are. That went fast.
I want Courtney to talk about his Kickstarter once again before we sign off here. So tell us a little bit about.
I love money, and not so much just money. I don't like it itself, but I like the fact that it allows me to continue to eat and provide food, not just for me, but for my family. So what I've decided to do is create really beautiful things and then make them available. And I'm going to make a very special, very limited, beautiful thing that only people who back the Kickstarter will have. Everybody will have the more general thing afterwards, but only Kickstarter backers will have the special thing. And when you look at yourself in the context of history, you have to ask yourself, do I want the normal thing or do I want the special thing? And
I want the special thing.
Yeah, I think people who are listening to this podcast want the special thing. And it's still going to be even
later.
Yeah, even backing the Kickstarter, it's going to be cheaper than it will be on the aftermarket, and you'll be getting a better product anyway. Is there any other thing you would rather spend your money on now that you're getting these checks from the government? It's just a small portion of it, just a few percent. And you can create something beautiful and put it in the world and own it, and then use that to help yourself feel better about living with other human beings.
That just reminded me, I think my wife took my stimulus check, so
more power to her.
I'm sorry.
No, more power.
Because all the money goes to her account because she follows the. Oh, damn! You're right. I don't think I'm going to see my money again this year. Oh well, but if you do see your money, this is very good to spend $30 on. Give it to Courtney for his bestial.
Yeah, well, you can spend more. There's a backer level up to 140. Like you can get the entire
at least 30
trilogy.
You can for 30, you can get the book and the download. If you want more, I say go for it because everything Courtney does, and I use this not every session, but quite a bit. For when
it's useful, right? Like
it's extremely useful.
I didn't threaten you at all.
No, and when I go into town, because there's a town there that Greg Gillespie detailed that's not very detailed, that if I want more detail, I just flip through here and I look for something interesting and boom, it pops up.
That's my tool for the town in the Mega Dungeon. Mm-hmm. It's perfectly suited for that.
Link it.
I'm going to do it right now for him.
Yeah, I had linked it earlier in the chat, but
nobody goes back that far.
It's probably way up in your chat or way down in your chat.
Bestial Ecosystems. I just backed it, and you should too. And I
backed it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to post a comment down here? Can I?
Yeah, lower right if you.
I don't think it's giving it to me.
One of these days I need to get my login for this. I've never logged in yet, so I need to log in.
No, that's what it is.
I'm always a guest. I'm always a guest here, so I never logged. And he did just what I did. He did exactly what I did. He tried to log in, and it kicks you out.
All right, you know what? Hold on. I had it opened before, but I'm gonna reopen it.
Courtney did what I did, which is try to push the login button. You'll be booted. You'll get your.
Hold on. I will put it up for people. For those of you at home that are listening to this, you're not going to see the link. We're sorry. I'll put the link in the show notes, though. On Anchor.
Yeah, there's the link right there. I see it.
I just put it up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and I put up the wrong one. I put up. I put up.
Dungeons. Oh, yeah, that one's gone. Yes.
Oh my God! How did I do that?
What did you do? What are you doing? What are you doing, sir?
Sorry, I picked up. I had backed two things recently, and that was one of them. Hold on, listen.
Well,
It was the James Shields distraction from earlier. I blame Courtney on that one. Here's the right one. Beck me. Just think Beck me.
Yes, Beck me will. If you remember,
there. Thank you. They were asking about on downtime. If you could link on downtime.
We did. We got it.
Well, I linked.
I don't think they did. I think they linked James's stuff, and then
I linked your current Kickstarter. Finally, it's up there now.
Well, you can get the books through there. I offer them as add-ons for the campaign.
Oh, nice. Yes,
you can buy the whole trilogy all at once.
Yes, can you buy individual books also, or can you just?
I do not have it set up that way, particularly because I want to drive sales on the platform for this new book. Like it came out on March 2nd, so we're still in immediate release for. Well, Doom Buddy, that's cool. We got a group here. We got people in town for sure.
Whoa.
I was talking to somebody else at Twitch. They live out in Bentonville. We got local players too.
Where's Lau? Now, where is Lau at?
Just a little north of Fayetteville.
Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
It's really close.
Yeah,
we live in a metroplex, right? Like it's really a city that's like 14 miles long, but it's split into like 5 cities. Like it's Fayetteville, Lowell, Springdale, Bentonville, Bella Vista, I think.
Well, bummer that Carl Howell announced they weren't going to have Arkansas Con again this year. So
yeah. Well, COVID. Next year though, right?
Yeah, hopefully next year.
He still does Mondays. Doesn't he have a show on Mondays?
I can't remember. I don't know. Probably.
Tenkar server. It's on your server. Tenkar.
I don't have to spend enough time on the Frog.
Monday show. What's the Monday show?
Server. I don't know. Does he still have that or not, Eric?
They're there on Monday.
I don't know if Eric knows anymore.
I'm not even sure. I'm doing everything else.
He's such a big star now. He doesn't pay
attention. I am not a big star. I'm not.
Are you getting that vibe?
His network. He doesn't know what goes on in his network anymore. His
network. No, listen, it's like a network of podcasts right now, right? We've got.
Yeah.
I've got my regular ones, and
He's got so many podcasts. He's got so many podcasts.
I think I would keep them all on one feed, otherwise I'd go insane.
We have done a lot of backers during the show.
So what do you got Friday? What's happening this Friday on your podcast, Eric?
Myself and Glenn. I'm not sure if we have a special guest or not.
Is Glenn going to robot out, or is he going to actually get a decent?
No. Glenn was good last week.
Okay, good. All right.
Well, last time, 2 weeks ago. Yes.
Yes.
I know. TotalCon. It was painful.
Oh my God, that was bad. Hopefully, he's got his issues taken care of, so he doesn't.
Yes, no.
Well, it would be nice to live in a country that has better internet, right?
I'm lucky. I live in New York City, so
you are. The rest of the country is not in as good shape.
And I look at it, and it's like we got files. My parents, they have a house that's been in a family for years up in the Poconos, and I think the DSL is lucky if it hits one MPS.
Yeah. They just care about the bank,
right?
Like they got the big pipe to the bank, and the rest of America can go to heck.
Yeah, well, and it's like, my mother's like, but why is it so slow? I go, she goes, I think we're paying for like 5 to 10. I go, no, you're paying 5 to 10, but anybody who has internet is getting off that DSL, pulls off that same node or whatever.
Yeah.
And unlike fiber. It's like, oh, we're losing water pressure.
No, and not only that, the signal degrades, right? Like, because it's analog, and so they have to have repeaters, raises the price of everything. It's really an interim technology. It shouldn't be like a finish, right? It was just a step in until they could get. Well, I guess Starlink is what's going to happen before anything else.
Yes, Starlink. I'm crossing my fingers on that one. Hopefully with my parents' house up there. They have Dish up there, so hopefully it's a similar angle for the satellite. Because if it's lower than that, we're gonna get fucking knocked off by the mountain, and fuck me. Or maybe it's in the other direction. I won't have a problem.
A lot of negativity there, Eric. You doing
wow.
Listen, apparently I'm better than James Spahn was telling me that since I retired, I've become less aggressive and a bit more pleasant. I was like,
No, I
wow.
can see that. I can see that. Also, you look like you have lost weight since your earlier medical emergencies. So
Oh, well,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I did hit like 293 when I had the congestive heart failure, but I found out from my orthopedist that like I weighed 275 a year and a half ago.
yeah.
I thought I was like 250. When you don't weigh yourself for a year.
No,
you
I
kind of like,
have no idea where I'm at, but I quit drinking soda, so
oh,
I've been hungry all the time. Turns out that when you eliminate 1,100 calories from your daily diet, your body doesn't know what to do. Nobody
All right.
knows, John Miller. They don't know what's inside the surface of the earth. They just guess. All scientists are guessing. Nobody knows for sure. We're actually mostly vacuum and empty space held together by invisible waves of force. That's not made up. That's literally how they explain it now. So good luck. I don't trust anything any of them say.
Wow, I think I'll have another drink after that. Boy, I'll have a lot of drinks tonight after that one. Well, I guess we're gonna wrap this one up. Thanks so much for being on the show, Courtney. We had a great time.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking with you guys. There's a reason. We could talk for another hour.
Oh God, easily.
Easily.
I would come by more often on Thursday, but I have my daughter that day, and your showtime coincides exactly when I put her to bed, and so like I can do it if I get there early enough and she gets to bed. But then lately the shows have been running short, so I come by and it's already everybody's cleared out.
What it is after the election, and then after the fiasco in the Capitol, there was nobody logging. Everybody, it was like
that's a factor
all
too.
Forms of social media. Last week, I think we had like 14, 15 people.
Yeah,
and,
I said, I meant to go,
11,
but it's entirely dependent on whether she has a lot of existential questions.
Listen, I'll be honest with you. If I have to bow out because of Rach and she has to go to work in the morning, I don't even announce I'm bowing out half the time. I just mute myself and bow out. Because if I say, "All right, I'm done," and everybody else closes up shop, otherwise they'll be in for another hour talking. Why should me leaving disrupt the conversation? So I try to avoid doing that. Folks, if you are watching this on YouTube, subscribe, like, comment. It all helps. We've been doing great. We've picked up, I think, about 60 subscribers in the last month. So
YouTube loves liking for the algorithm.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Are you using the communication, the quiz feature or whatever? They say that's really helpful.
No, I don't know about any quiz feature.
You post an engagement question or whatever.
Oh, I didn't even think of that one.
Yeah, Google loves it. They love that for rankings. So shoot you right up.
All right. Well, there we have it. But in any case, folks, I appreciate everybody on the podcast side, everybody on the YouTube side. Thank you so much. Even you Facebook people, thank you. It makes it great for us. But the YouTubers, you really make it great for us because we get your conversation, we get your comments, and it really does make. Put your daughter on a live stream, John says.
Well, she will come in and give her opinion.
Somehow it's running the family. That's awesome.
Oh boy.
Oh, it is for sure. She's full of.
We'll take it. None of us here. Well, Courtney, I guess, kind of technically is, are medical professionals. So we're not going to give you instructions on what to do in the world of COVID. I'm just going to say use your common sense. Yes. Take actions to protect yourself, because if you don't protect yourself,
be safe.
You can't protect your loved ones. So it's what it comes down to. You wouldn't throw that fireball into a 10x10 room after you already did, because my character has common sense and wouldn't know. They'd know about the blowback. Well, use your fucking common sense. That's all I'm saying. Be safe, be well, God bless. Roll those dice. Knock on wood. I'll be back with you all tomorrow. All right, technically it's pressed wood, but
later.
Laters.